mean, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't know if this is on.
It's on. What the fuck, I don't need that. Okay, you're on.
Okay.
I'm going to go live now. Hi, guys. Today it is like Tuesday. As I was saying that we have our math class here. Math class, English and Creole. So where me and Mr. Prosper, we are going to talk about two very important basic topic. So therefore, guys, before we go full blown into algebra, pre-algebra, we are going to talk about algebra properties and other operations. And this is our English math class. So Mr. Prosper, as customary, is going to be studying the English part of it, and then me, I'm going to come over, and then I'm going to start the Creole part. As I said earlier, guys, in my previous classes, I said that sometime I will introduce some English word with my Creole. So I'm going to interchange between Creole and English. So guys, it is the first time I'm doing it live on TikTok, but the first two classes was on YouTube. And now I decided to also include TikTok on it. So if you are watching me on TikTok, welcome to our English math class. So my name is Franz Poland. I used to be a teacher for 27 years for the ones that are watching me on TikTok. And actually, Mr. Prosper, it is in his 5th or 4th years of teaching. And it is an excellent math teacher. And I have learned a lot from him. Primarily, when I used to teach 6, 7, 8, and 8th graders math. So I never taught 10, 11, and 12 graders. So it is when I started working with Mr. Prosper that I started learning and taught myself calculus 1, algebra 2. So I have learned a lot because I do tutoring now in the afternoon as a side gig as a retiree. So I do get into contact with high school kids that are in 11, 12 grades that need help in math, and then also kids that left first and went to college and come back when they are taking calculus. And Mr. Prosper was very instrumental in helping them. By associating myself with Mr. Prosper, I kind of teach myself also some calculus. So guys, without any further ado, je vais enseigner nous la mathématique. Haïtien, yo côté nous y là, nous parlons pas en pile. So même c'est en créole que je vais teach, Mr. Prosper va teach en anglais. Mais quelquefois je vais parler en anglais tout parce que je fais presque 27 ans à enseigner mathématiques en anglais. So la première difficile pour moi pour me perdre anglais à net pour créole là. But anyway guys, bear with me. Mr. Prosper, come. Okay. Take over, Mr. Prosper.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Mr. Prosper. Hopefully, if you remember from the previous videos, we started off with like all the types of numbers out there, the real numbers. I'll just do a brief recap so it can explain like how we go from the real numbers, what they are, to what we're going to talk today first, algebraic properties, and then ultimately order of operations. Again, Mr. Paul and I, we came up with this idea of making pre-algebra, algebra 1 classes available online for specifically Haitian-speaking students, because in my high school, it's very predominantly Haitian students, right, in New York City. And I know a lot of them could do better if there was a way for me to get the math to them language-wise, right? I don't know Creole, Mr. Paulin does. And so again, our goal for these videos is to sort of hopefully get the math simplified so that anyone can understand it, but also in a way that Mr. Paulin can explain it in Creole. So again, I just wanted to go over briefly what we did before, right? Last video, we talked about natural numbers, right? Natural numbers were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, onward. And then we went to whole numbers. And all whole numbers did was include 0. Whole numbers just include 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, onward. And then we had integers, right? Because now you have zeros, you can get negative numbers. So integers, -1, -2, -3, -4, to negative infinity, like Mr. Paulin said last time, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to positive infinity. But then, right, you have numbers that are rational, and hopefully I was able to explain it very simply. Rational numbers are numbers that you can show as a ratio, as a fraction. Those would be the numbers in between, right, the whole numbers. But even a whole number can be considered a rational number because you could turn a whole number into a fraction. And then we talked about irrational, which is outside of rational. So if you can't change it to a fraction, like the number pi, that's irrational. And then we said all these numbers were real numbers. Right? All these numbers are real numbers. That was the last video. So then we go now to algebraic properties. Right? And that's just a fancy way of saying, like, now that we know all the real numbers, or classified all the real numbers, and we know what they are, what if we try and do things to them? Right? What could be those things that we could do to those numbers? Right? That's the way to look at it. Well, the first one is commutative property. Commutative property. And like the word says, to communicate is to move. Right? I'm sorry, to commute. To commute is to move. Right? My commute this morning on the bus to school, right? My commute to work on the subway. So all this means, right? A plus B, right, is the same thing as B plus A. That's all the commutative property is telling you. That the order that you put the letters in, it doesn't matter when you add. So this is for addition. Okay? Is there another thing we can do to numbers where the order doesn't matter? Yeah, multiplication. So I know I'm using letters here, but I'll give you an example. Like 3 plus 5 is the same thing as 5 plus 3. This is the commutative property. Let me rewrite this. Let me write this back. Multiplication, maybe it's different. Is it? 3 times 5? Is that different from 5 times 3? No, it's not. And this is very important. On New York Regents exams, they always ask about these algebraic properties. They always ask about the commutative property. So it's very important that you understand that it just means, oh, if I move the letters around for addition and multiplication, right, it's still going to be the same result, the same answer. Okay? 3 times 5 is the same thing as 5 times 3. 3 plus 5 is the same thing as 5 plus 3. Okay? But then you have another property that will show up. Associative property. So the way to remember commutative is commute. You move, if you can move it around, is it the same? Then you're saying you're using a commutative property. We'll do problems after this that are actual high school high school level problems you need to understand in order to graduate, where it will ask you, it will give you a whole bunch of things and tell you which of these properties applies. So that's why this is very important that you understand the language that's being used. The same way you have to understand the language that was being used for like the real numbers. It's the same thing for these algebraic properties. So again, commute. Can I move the, if it looks as though the letters are moved around, the numbers are moved around, oh, I was using a commutative property. Associative property, right? I think this just means you can put different groups of numbers, variables, numbers together and do an operation to that first. And say if you had done the group of the same things being added or multiplied, it would be the same thing. I know that sounds confusing. So the best way I can do is show you. So like say if we have 1 plus 2, say if we do that first, like that's in the group. We're doing 1 plus 2 plus 3. is that going to be a different answer than 1 plus 2 plus 3? Say if I do 2 plus 3 first and then add 1, is that different from doing 1 plus 2 first and then adding 3? Well, then what do we get here? We get 3 plus 3, and you get 1 plus 5, and you get what? 6 is equal to 6. That's all it means. Maybe my explanation word-wise wasn't the best, but associative property just means if I'm moving a group, right, of numbers or variables, I mean a letter, right? If I'm adding them, everything's going to be the same as this if I had grouped it differently. So again, it sort of stems from the commutative property. We didn't move the numbers around. We just did the operation of adding to this first, and then it was still the same thing as if we had added the last two numbers first. The easiest way to remember the associative property when you see it on an exam, there's always some kind of parentheses. That's the only way you can really see associative. There's parentheses. So one way I've tried to get kids to remember this is, you know how you have like there's a person, right? And so this, you can think of the ASS in associative as though it's someone's buttocks, right? So think of associative as, oh, there's parentheses involved, and it's showing you that the parentheses moved, right? The parentheses move. That's indication that this is the property that happened, okay? So that's one way you can remember it. So the ASS in associative is similar, right? Is parentheses, like buttocks, right? Like cheeks, right? Does it also apply for multiplication? But it does. We can check it. We can say, all right, 2 times 3 times 5. Is that the same thing as 2 times 3 times 5? So if you do the 2 times 3 first and times that by 5, is that the same thing as doing 3 times 5 first and then times that by 2? 6 times 5, 2 times 15, and then you get 30 is equal to 30. So just know that, again, these properties only apply for multiplication and addition, right? This one is addition. So again, associative is like, who do you associate with? The groups you made, right? Right? You and your associates is a group, right? If I do these groups and I add or multiply, it's going to be the same as if I did the different grouping of the same numbers. Okay? Do you want to?
One more, poverty?
I mean, should we explain this first?
Finish
or?
Jason.
No, let's do it. Let's do it. All right,
Yeah.
so I'll do the last
They
property.
distribute it. Don't erase it because I'm going to go over you. Yes.
So, right, commutative is pretty straightforward, right? Move numbers or letters around. When you're adding and multiplying, it's the same. You're going to get the same sum or the same product, the same end result, right? This one might be a little more complicated. Just know it's involved with parentheses. I can move the parentheses around, right? I can move the parentheses around when adding or multiplying, and the end result, right, of adding and multiplying will be the same. Okay? It's just you're changing the right groups of numbers that you first did the addition or the first did the multiplication. But again, if you still add everything, it's still going to be the same. That's what's important. Okay. Right? And then we have the last one, distributive. This is the most used one in algebra. Okay? And then this follows, and this is why we approach the algebraic properties this way. In that commutative, right? Associative builds on that. And so it makes sense I do distributive next because distributive builds on associative. When you see distributive, there will always be some parentheses there. So maybe the best thing I could do, let me not use variables or letters. Let's just use numbers. So let's say 2, right? And then outside here we have 3 plus 5, right? The distributive property says, all right, that this is the same thing as 2 times 3 plus 2 times 5. And if you look, you're like, well, how did I get this? Well, I took this 2 and I distributed it to both of the numbers inside the parentheses. Okay? In New York City, you might see some guys go down the block throwing out coupons from the grocery store, right? We say that they're distributing distributing the coupons. It's the same thing. Imagine the person going down and you're giving out whatever's out in front of the parentheses. You're giving it out to each thing inside. You're distributing it, right? That's literally why we call it distributive property. But is it true though? Well, 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 5 is 10. And then we add it, we get 16. Say if we had used the associative property, which says what? I should do the stuff inside the parentheses first. I could have done that too. And then this would have been what? 2, and then in parentheses 8, right? 2 times 8, 2 eighths, that's right. 2 times 8 is how much? 16. So isn't this the same thing as what we got here? All the distributive property means is you can, right, multiply whatever's outside in front of the distributive. You can distribute it to each thing. And it's important that you know distributive means you multiply, right? That's what you're doing. It's very important because I know some people might get confused. So like another example would be that a lot of mistakes are made. Right? A lot of students, I've realized, they see this, or like say if I have, let's 7 minus this, right? 7 minus whatever this is. I could, again, associative says, oh, go ahead and do what's in the group. Go ahead and do what's in the group. And I get 7 minus 7. Or with the distributive property, right? So you can look at this as like the associative, right? Distributive property would say what? This is the same thing as what? 7. And then you see this negative? I put the negative, I distribute the negative. 7 minus 3, right? Minus 4, which is the same thing as what? 0. This one trips up a lot of people. Just know though, you can, if it's in front of the parentheses, even a negative, you can distribute it. So this is a very common problem among students. They forget that you should distribute the negative inside. But that's it. Those are like the 3 basic algebraic properties that if you understand, if you see this problem in the regions, you won't get it wrong.
Good job. All right, Mr. Vosper.
Is that how you do it?
Yes, stop it. Okay, good job. Okay, guys. So this is a big thanks to Mr. Vosper for going over this with you. But as I said earlier in all my explanation to you guys, although my job is to teach in Creole, but I insist on also speaking some English here because my target, it is mainly for students that came from Haiti and then that does not really master the English language yet, qui pas comprendre langage créole là et que n'a fait li comme ça. So m'ai toujours dit que m'a fait 2-3 parler anglais quand même que m'a teach en créole parce que li réellement important que pour élèves yo connaît vocabulaire word yo. Okay? So c'est créole parler créole comprendre but fun vocabulaire yo because most of the time the tests que nous pral prendre yo guys c'est en anglais test là puis même si en créole il y a 2 mots yo pas converti réellement quand même. So m'pas besoin convertir commutative, associative or distributive en créole pour nous. I'm going to say the same word qu'en anglais qu'en créole. So, avant que Mr. Prosper entre dans algebraic expression, il te fait une sorte de recap dans what we call natural numbers. Avant, nous parler de, comment dirais-je, numbers properties dans ce sens. So, il te dit natural numbers, c'est 1, 2, 3, 4. c'est ça que les natural numbers. Après ça, from natural numbers, nous venons tomber dans whole numbers. Whole numbers, ça, il y a 0 là-dedans. OK? 0, et puis 1, 2, 3, 4. Ça, c'est ça que le whole numbers. Après ça, il vient parler de ça que le integers. Integers, c'est là qu'on vient commencer là, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. Ça veut dire que vient gagner negative side, vient gagner positive side, qui vient faire qu'on y a là, toute line là. C'est là que le integers. From infinity négatif to positive négatif. So, dans ce sens, ça, l'on commence à comprendre property, ça est réellement important. Après ça, nous venons tomber dans rational numbers. Après ça, nous venons tomber dans irrational numbers. Et puis, nous venons tomber from irrational numbers. Nous venons tomber dans irrational numbers, rational numbers. And then what? Whatever we are
And
talking
then
about.
all those numbers
And
are
then-
real numbers.
And real numbers. And then, tout numbers ça que nous parlons, c'est ça que les real numbers. So, c'est ça que nous te fait. Si nous ne connaissons très bien, nous te fait leçon ça. Allez dans la vidéo que nous postons dans le channel et puis nous sommes capables de pratiquer. Et nous te même fait quelques, comment dirais-je, leçons regent, leçons que tu as demandé sous ça. Bien qu'elle paraisse easy, mais vocabulaire, c'est que des questions qui a posées, nous, si nous ne comprenons pas, nous ne pouvons pas répondre très bien. Quand les gens que nous te dit, ils doivent demander où il y a un bon set of numbers et puis ils disent qui ça est. C'est whole number, natural number, integers, irrational numbers, ou doit connaître set numbers ça pour connaître exactement qui ça pour répondre. C'est peut-être raison ça que nous te fait ça à Sony. So, je ne vais pas retourner ça parce que nous avons la vidéo à retourner là-dedans. So, pour nous courir, algebraic expression, c'est que, guys, il y a 3 vocabulary words dans l'algebraic expression que vous devez master. Premier, c'est commutative properties. Et Jean comme ça produit là, on commute, c'est pas que on move around. So, dans commutative properties, il y a pour avec grouping of the numbers. I mean, pas grouping, non. Order of the numbers. Qui j'ai que numbers yo. OK? A plus B, Jean te dit là, 3 plus 5, c'est même Jean qui sous te prend 5 l'on mette le devant plus 3. Pas de différence. Parce que 3 plus 5 la bon 8, 5 plus 3 la bon 8. Quel que soit Jean que ou changer numbers yo, pas aucune différence dans commutative properties. Et ça, les valide pour tous les deux. C'est pour addition avec multiplication. OK? Ou pas qu'à faire commutative property avec subtraction. Ça c'est ou 5 minus 3, c'est pas même bagaille avec 3 minus 5. 5 minus 3 bon 2, 3 minus 5 la bonne négative tout. C'est deux bagailles différents. You see? $2 dans poche avec ou perdu $2. You see? Ou ka perdu un pile comme. So, commutative property n'est pas travail pour ni division ni pour subtraction. Il travaille simplement pour multiplication avec division. Ou capable prendre nombre changer le genre qu'on veut, faire boula avec passer le bypass et même résultat qu'on a besoin. Jean qu'on viril. C'est ça que le commutative properties. So les gain pour avec orders of the numbers. OK? So next. Très facile. L'autre là c'est multiplication, j'aime dire là. Multiplication là. Pas multiplication non, associative properties, c'est même pas là tout. Les gain pour avec addition et multiplication. But this time it has to do with the grouping of the numbers. Grouping là parce que les gain parenthèses là dans les. So simba ou 5 bracket 3 5 plus 3 plus 2. Guess what, guys? It doesn't matter, genre que vous changez grouping, non. On doit dire 5 plus 3 plus 2, c'est presque le même résultat qu'on a besoin. Pas aucune différence. Et même genre tout pour multiplication. 5 multiplié par 3 times 2. Vous ne pouvez pas mettre time là because it is understood c'est time que lié passé devant lui. OK, times 2, c'est même genre avec 2 multiplié par 3 times 5, c'est le même résultat qu'on a besoin. So, commutative properties avec associative properties, guess what? Il y a pour avec addition et multiplication. OK? Et même associative properties là, si vous mettez subtraction là dans lui, pour changer order of the numbers dans subtraction là, vous pas besoin de même résultat. Et même genre tout à division tout, vous pas besoin de même résultat. So pour cette raison ça, depuis des words commutative et associative properties, nous connaissons que c'est avec deux classes que nous travaillons. Addition, multiplication. Et puis troisième non, c'est distributive property. Distributive property, guys, li gen pou l'we avec wap distribuye. Yeah. Li gen pou l'we wap distribuye, guys, okay? So that's the distributive property. So this is the distribution here. Distribution here is that you have this here. 2, 3 plus 5, c'est comme ça qu'on fait. 2 multiplié par 3 et 2 multiplié par 5. See? 2 multiplié par 3 bon 6 plus 2 multiplié par 5, ça bon 10. Et puis, quand il y a l'on additionné 2, ça vient bon 16. Pas aucun problème, soumettez 5 là, soumettez 3 là, c'est même gens quoi venir. Il pas même aucun problème tout, soumettez 3 là, et then nous mettez 5 là, et pour mettre 2 là. OK, guys? C'est presque même genre. Multiplier, multiplier. That's the way it's going to be. C'est ça qui relève ou distributive property. And then, Mr. Post fait des bagages qui était fait qui est réellement important pile. Parce que nous venons réaliser là que on prend examen widget. En pile élève fait erreur là que gain on bagage comme ça. Quand vous Mr. Post bon 7 et puis il fait ça comme ça 3 plus 4. Erreur que en pile monde fait c'est à cause de 5 sacs là. Depuis que 5 sacs devant faut distribuer l'avant. OK? Parce que on doit faire deux gens. On va distribuer ça là, il vient bon négatif 3. Then nous vient distribuer encore une bonne négative 4 et pour venir quitter ça là. And guess what, guys? And the answer is going to be 0. Parce que l'on prend ça ou retire le forme ça, il vient bon 4, l'on vient voir là, l'absile bon 0. You understand? So that's what it is. So in this sense here, since que pas gain aucun bracket là, ou doit faire ça avec l'envant, la vient bon négative 7 minus 7 l'absile bon 0. That, il vient tourner en associative property of addition dans le sens. Parce que ça, c'est comme si ça plus ça. Et pour additionner, il vient bon négative 7, négative 7 plus positive 7, il vient bon 0. Ça, c'est là que nous pourrons aller entrer dans l'autre topic là qui est order of operations. Et puis pour venir connaître qui order pour faire opération parce que il y a une formalité pour order of operations. OK? Parce que ou pas capable de faire order of operations dans n'importe genre. Il y a un principe. Ou pas capable d'additionner avant qu'on multiplie dans une ligne ou dans une équation. Ou pas capable faire soustraction avant que vous fait division ou faire quand l'autre non ou faire exponential. So nous parler order of operation dans ce sens ça. Moi pas arrêter plus faire trop bagage c'est monsieur pour faire expliquer tout en anglais et n'importe élève qui regarde moi ou quand on comprend en anglais même juste font petit workshop pour nous en créole pour si que anglais nous passe sur nous at least n'a comprendre exactement ça que monsieur pour faire parler. This is at least c'est quoi ça classe allié. Nous gagnons pour nous faire quatre problèmes widget. So, là, nous finissons faire order of operations, et then nous avons fait tout problème widget. Et puis, super bon petit chance, guys, we fin, comment dirais-je, ou moi, là que je commence à prendre chance, ça c'est un d'album que je fait together, sur la mise de chance, et puis je mets PDF file, problème pour nous capable pratiquer avec deux exemples que nous avons. All right, guys. So, si vous avez une question, nous devons écrire, on prend une critique, pas de problème, guys. All right, Mr. Prosper, you can take over now.
Right, so I sort of understood a little what Mr. Pong was saying about the regions, and like I wanted to show you how what we just went over, how again a student in high school would see it here in New York City, right? Like what they would be expected to answer in order to graduate, right? All right, so. Like this. This is pretty straightforward. It says, right, you have right, and then the person's given only two choices, right? Commutative, associative, distributive, distributive, multiplicative, inverse. So again, this is an actual Regents problem, right? For a few years back. And all they do is give you this, right, to the student. And again, that's why I was like, it's so important that Mr. Paul and I try and do these videos, especially for these Haitian students, because as long as they can understand it in their language, right? As long as they can understand it in their language, then this is an easy question, all right? This is a pretty straightforward question, right? As long as you understood what we just went over, commutative, did the order of the numbers change? You could say they did. Right? Associative, there are parentheses there, that is true. And this is why it's a Regents question, right? The parentheses there is to throw you off. Is the parentheses changing the groups that are being added or multiplying? It's not really changing the groups, because what they want you to understand is like, there's this times, right? This times this, and then this times that, right? So say if there was like a third thing in there, then we know it would be associative. So we know it can't be that. Distributive. Some people might think, oh, we're multiplying it and it's distributive. But again, distributive would only work if there's multiple things inside the parentheses that you're distributing to. And multiplicative inverse, even though we didn't go over to those three, in the Regents, and I have a whole bunch of questions in the Regents, they're not really assessing for this. They're assessing if you understand these three things, because these are basic algebraic properties that you need to understand, if that makes sense. So maybe the person knew that, oh, well, we didn't go over this, so it can't be that. Well, it's either distributive, right, commutative. And obviously the best answer is this one. Right? You can just see the order of what's being multiplied changed. It was 3 times 4x. And then on this side, all they did was do what? 4x times 3. And that was literally what we went over before. This would be 2 points on the Regents, right? And to pass, you need 65. So again, there's questions that just testing language, right? I'll give a harder one. Because this one right here is, maybe I should use black. This one, I know a lot of kids got wrong in the past. Okay? All right? And then this one just asking, is it distributive, associative of addition, right? Associative of multiplication. Commutative of multiplication. So right, this question is just, right, in the black, this question right here is just, again, testing, do you understand the mathematical vocabulary? And then I know why many kids would get this wrong, because they might look at this and be confused. As in like, this is just a lot. A lot of things are happening. Well, then you just have to be able to at least understand not just the vocabulary, but the symbols. So you need to know that this dot in the middle of two terms means multiply. Right? And you also need to know, and Mr. Paulin said it before, like, oh, you have two parentheses or something in front of the parentheses, we have to multiply. So we know that whatever's in here is being multiplied by whatever's in here. So then you could also cross out what? You could say, well, by order of elimination, well, it's not only addition. You can even look, right? You should at least know that there's multiplication happening here. And hopefully you would understand that this means x minus 6 times 8, and then x minus 6 times x. And then you might think, oh, okay, maybe it's commutative because you change the order. How, if I change the order, wouldn't the only thing that makes sense if I change the order, I do 8 plus x times x minus 6? Is that what's happening here? You can see it's not. So it's either distributive or associative of multiplication. And I know a lot of students would pick maybe the second one because they know, oh, there's different groups of multiplying happen, which is true. That is true. And this is why this is a Regents problem. What this is, again, assessing is, did this student understand that the x minus 6, seeing that it showed up twice, it was distributed, right? The x minus 6 was distributed to each. I know a lot of kids might have looked at this, even people looking now and be like, oh, but isn't it different groups of multiplying that's happening? But again, that's why this is a Regents high school level problem here in New York City. Okay? And again, this would be very difficult to understand if you don't understand what distributive means, right? If you just didn't know, you would never even think to pick that, right?
Good, yeah, that's true.
Should do more? No, two is good.
Yeah, 2 is okay. Yes.
Okay.
All right. The only thing is that, okay, guys. So ça c'est problème typique problème que moi avec Mr. Prosper nous fait aller dans Regent. C'est une bagaille qui gagne dans New York City, ou capable aller dans computer et pour taper math Regent et puis là tout math Regent. Mr. Prosper, from what year they started?
Oh, 9th. And some schools in middle school, they give them a chance to try it 8th.
8th?
In middle school,
from
some.
8th grade, you can commencer par.
Yeah,
You
but few,
studied,
but like
studied
not many
in
middle
math
schools.
Regent.
Yeah,
But when you go online to do pass Regents, from what year they start?
Oh, you mean in terms like from 1990s?
1990. So from 1990, tout Regent yo bay depuis 1990 jusqu'à nos jours, chaque année yo toujours mette online. Ça a été un archive, un database de tout Regent yo. So m'dé qu'on a enseigné mathématiques longtemps, c'est nous besoin faire ti moun yo pratique là que yo parle prendre Regent exam yo. Nous download en pile dans problème ça et puis nous go over them with avec yo pour nous capable réellement faire ti moun yo pratiquer. So ça yo c'est deux problèmes qui dans Regent yo. Les gens capable là nous ne pouvons faire aucun problème mathématique réellement vrai. Ça yo, de gain pour avec vocabulaire et puis understanding sur comprendre ça qu'a dit là. Nous t'ai expliqué commutative, associative, distributive et multiplicative. Basé le problème ça là, on prend 3 times 4x, c'est même genre avec 4x times 3. So, ça veut dire qu'elle pas associative parce que pas addition là, il pas distributive parce que nous pas distribuer ou quand on fait élimination, c'est ça que le process of elimination parce que là bon on question là Regent là, il y a deux questions que pas gagner pour le avec rien du tout. OK? So vous allez regarder deux questions ça retirer li. Après ça il y a deux questions qui presque similaires là réponse là mais a un plus bon answer. Ça veut dire que ça même là qu'il y a multiplication là dedans parce que nous pas aller sur ça parce que c'est trois ça seulement qui existait dans le langage que nous avons enseigné avant. OK? C'est commutative, associative, distributive. Le fait que ça nous pas really then des fois même besoin passer ton là dedans nous connaît que c'est ça qui aller de right answer. So very easy. Parce que regarder là, c'est commutative. On prend toi ou just changer li ou changer li.
Yeah.
Commutative. That's what it is. All right? Ça li maintenant c'est un l'autre que ba ou et Jean là ou yo montre une façon puis on gens confuse. Il paraît en pile et puis oppose distributive, associative of multiplication and commutative of multiplication. Et Jacques comme dit là gain deux là deux pas gain pour lui avec question hein. Distributive parce que guess what guys, pas distributive non, associative of addition, pas aucune addition là que pour dire associative. Associative of multiplication, guess what guys? Nous pas pral réellement multiplier pour nous retourner multiplier par ça là. Commutative c'est pas ça là tout parce que nous pas changer order. The right answer ou capable c'est distributive parce que Jean ça y a groupe number ça on multiplie par 8 et puis même groupe number on multiplie par x parce que c'est ça que fait. Et puis la multiplication guys, il y a plusieurs moyens que on dit multiplication. Ça c'est multiplication. Ça c'est multiplication. Ça c'est multiplication. OK guys? Or what is the product? Again, c'est multiplication. Ça veut dire que c'est tout vocabulaire. Vous avez besoin qu'on ait exactement l'heure date là. Et pas date comme ça, non? Il faut aller la mi-temps pour lier. Pour capable multiplication. Parce que si c'est là que lié, il n'y a pas de multiplication encore, on va parler de decimal numbers. So, mathématiques sont très très belles sciences que les gars doivent commencer à comprendre. Mais avant que pour nous commencer à entrer dans les numbers, vous devez connaître le vocabulaire. Le vocabulaire est réellement important en pile, guys. C'est peut-être ça que m'encourage nous-mêmes, les Haïtiens, nous là, nous prenons dictionnaire, ou du moins aller dans Google, garder mots, et puis taper, et puis demander Google qui ça signifie, et puis bon exemple. Get yourself involved, guys, pour nous comprendre. Parce que, en pile réponse, la mathématique, les gains pour le 80%, c'est avec le vocabulaire. En même fois, vous avez un problème, le fait qu'on ne comprend pas le langage, on ne pas comprendre what is being asked of you, et pour ne pas venir avec the right answer. Pendant ce temps, si ça a été demandé, et puis c'est réellement très, très, très facile. Now, we are going to move in the second topic, which is order of operation. Order of operation, guys, c'est, comment dirais-je, the matrix of math. Parce que sans order of operation, guys, c'est moteur mathématique. Sans order of operation, there is no way ou capable de faire mathématiques bien. All right? Mr. Prosper, you want to take over or you want me to start?
You could start.
Okay. Order of operation. So, sans ça, guys, ou pas capable de faire rien avec order of operations. So, gon bagay que longtemps, yo te koun ba nou pour yo te capable réellement faire nous songer ça qui est l'order of operations. Un bagay qui est le PEMDAS. Son acronyme que lié, l'ensemble, pas pour dire son nom acronyme lié, chaque lettre ça représente un vocabulaire word. Ouais que P a gain pour lui avec parenthèse, OK? I a gain pour lui avec exponent. Ma bon exemple, exponent bagay comme ça. Ça a gain pour lui avec multiplication. Ça a gain pour lui avec division. Ça a gain pour lui avec addition. Et ça a gain pour lui avec subtraction. Ça veut dire que c'est order. L'order, ça veut dire que il y a parenthèse, il y a exponent, il y a multiplication. Et multiplication, c'est vous mettez une sorte de consalade dans lui. Whichever comes first, l'order of operation. And same thing too avec addition. Whichever comes first. But, l'order ça yo, il est important pour capable garder. Par exemple, bon, un problème qui est très facile. Vous doit écrire un bagage comme ça. 2 plus 3 times 5 minus 2. Minus 2 times 4. Oui, ça m'a banni. Et puis, je suis capable de dire comme ça. Oui, ça. Divided by 2 plus 6. Bon nombre me laguer, me crazy net, me juste voyer monter. Mais ça fait que me crazy me voyer monter parce que me connais que qui ça que me va faire, parce que me connais que même là mon paquet de bon nombre hier, faut que même prendre ensemble pour me connaître exactement comment me va le déchiffrer. Premier bagage yo dit c'est parenthèse. Avant que me faire n'importe bagage, me quitter ça comme ça 2 plus 3 et puis me quitter parenthèse là en mi-temps et puis me travaille parenthèse là. Avant que même aller dans division or subtraction nan. So, je travaille parenthèse là. Now, guess what? Je ne vais pas faire 5 minus 2. Parce que les dîmes là, parenthèse, exponent, après exponent, si je ne vais pas exponent après la parenthèse là, je vais aller dans multiplication. Donne-moi la multiplication. Donne-moi faire multiplication. That's what? 2 times 4. What? It's going to be 8
Minus 8. Yeah.
and then 5. They can do minus 2 times 4, let's see it là. Ça fait tout que minus là. Okay? Now, man dans parenthèse là still. So, si man dans parenthèse là, guess what? What can I do here? C'est to solve li. So, c'est 5 minus 8. Je vais faire après 3. Then, je retourne là, and then je mette division là, et puis je mette plus 6 là. Là, je connais film casser figi ça net. Now, quand il y a là, j'ai multiplication et puis j'ai division. Et ça veut dire multiplication ou division. Si c'est division qui est en vent, je fais division. Comme c'est multiplication qui est en vent, then je vais my 2 plus 3 times negative 3, ça va me negative 9. OK? just mette là negative 9, and then moi pour division nan là, plus 6. M'brale toujours. Negative 9 divided by 2.
Negative 4.5.
Okay, negative 4.5. All right, so 2 plus negative 4.5 plus 6. Then, konya la guys, c'est negative 4.5, c'est tout. M'gada tirer plus là, so moi just, it's going to give me negative 2.5 plus 6, and then now it's going to give me like what? Okay, mathematical, negative 2.5 plus 6 is going to be
negative
6,
3.5.
negative
I mean, sorry, 3.5.
2.5.
Yeah, positive 3.5.
Positive 3.5, okay. And that will be the final answer.
So the way, right, Mr. Paulin, that you did it,
Now,
you know how we just went over the commutative property? Whenever I get down to 2, if I see how it's 2 plus negative 4.5 plus 6, I personally would do 2 plus 6.
oh, you
know
do
what I'm
it
saying?
and then you go back
And
there.
yeah.
That's
Again,
right.
that's why I go just to go back to what we did before.
Yeah.
Why it's important to know
If you
those,
follow it.
because if you know those algebraic properties, you can find shortcuts to add.
Shortcuts to that's true. Now, to do the shortcuts, you have to know your vocabulary
Yeah.
very well. You have to know the additional. But the way I taught my kids, just follow the letter exactly like this, and then there's no way you are going to miss it.
And do it from left to right.
When you
Yeah.
are, quand vous êtes confortable net avec order of operation, guys, là très facile pour le vivre comme second nature. Ça fait que les vins nous gens mettent le plus compliqué pour nous là, because je pas penser me just tag number comme ça. But usually when on prend test, you pas le mettre le comme ça là pour venir joindre negative things like that parce que pas too much problems. Parce que y a nous pouvons enseigner integers pour nous montrer what we call les noms topic qui les sign numbers. This has to do with sign numbers. Ça c'est là qu'on a enseigné sign numbers. When nous venons dans order of operation, then nous allons introduire sign numbers. Parce que quand nous voulons rester dans order of operation, something it is very easy. Something que nous connaissons, que nous sommes capables de faire, minus 8 divided by 4. Comprenez? Bagay qui very easy, que nous connaissons que là, c'est 2. 5 plus 4, 9, minus 8, ou faire ça en 20, negative by 4, right? That's going to give you negative 2. And then now, you can multiply là, 2 fois 9, 18, minus 2, ça vient de 16. Ça, c'est un bagay qui est facile. Parce que là, pas gagner décimal nombre là dedans, on prend même là nous mettons minus, mais pas réellement sign numbers que nous avons fait dans ce sens là. So c'est ça que le order of operation, guys. Remember, PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. C'est comme ça que yo dit nous pour nous faire li. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So, P a c'est pour parenthèse, I a c'est pour exponent. Exponent c'est n'importe bagay qui comme ça. OK, c'est ça que l'exponent là. 4 to the second power, ça veut dire que 4 times 4 equals 16. That's what we call exponent. Et si vous avez you have to solve the exponent avant que vous faites ni multiplication, ni division, ni addition, ni subtraction. So, order of operation, c'est un bagay que même si on fait calculus, this always apply. La mathématique, même si on fait dernière qualité mathématique là, order of operation, it is the basics of everything in math. Mr. Prosper, you can take over now. And then, we will mettre 2-3 number of widget for the order of operation. Okay, Prosper, take over. Now you can.
Because Mr. Pond did a great job. No, I mean, you just want me to explain what you said in English, or?
No, in English. Oh, you don't speak Creole. You can
You did it perfectly.
No, you can erase and then go with your own numbers.
Okay, I mean, all right.
And then doing the different numbers with them.
Yeah, okay.
Because I was like kind of throwing any type of numbers on the board, so kind of confuse them more. But just go in English and then just finalize it with them.
So like, right? Again, I guess in English, I will just reiterate what Mr. Paulin was talking about in terms of the order of operations. Right? We first started these videos talking about real numbers, all the kinds of numbers out there, the numbers in algebra that we'll be dealing with. We called all these numbers real numbers. And then earlier in this video, we talked about the things that, right, that we can how we operate with these numbers, right? The algebraic operations, right? We talked about, oh, well, we could, if we're adding or multiplying, the order doesn't really matter. And also, if we group them while we're adding or multiplying, right? If we group them in different ways, that shouldn't change the outcome. And then we talked about distributive. As you can see, we built on like parentheses, right? And the instances of parentheses. So that's why, again, Mr. Paul said it perfectly. You should always start with the parentheses, right? Whatever's in the parentheses. The same way we were going over the algebraic, properties, right? Associated was talking about, right? Oh, whatever's in the parentheses. Distributive, right? It's all about what goes in the parentheses. We have to make sure that whatever operations we're doing get applied to what's in the parentheses first. One Regents problem that I can sort of use to reiterate, right, that might be confusing to some students because we talk about parentheses, but sometimes you might see something like this. And why is this confusing? Because this whole time we're talking about do what's in the parentheses first, right? And then after you do what's in the parentheses, you do whatever has an exponent, right? An exponent, right? An example would be like 2 to the third, which just means you do 2 times 2 times 2. That little number is the exponent. And he's right. You multiply, divide, left to right, whichever comes first. And then after that, you add or subtract, right? Whichever comes first, left to right. But sometimes you see these things here. These are called brackets. And so when we talk about doing parentheses first,
Including brackets.
that includes brackets. And that's why some kids might get this wrong. But you have to just treat the parentheses, treat the brackets,
That's
right?
fine,
Basically, parentheses. Just treat it like a parentheses. Parentheses. Okay? And the same thing goes for, and you'll see this too because it's on the Regents. 5.
Absolute value.
These are the absolute value. These you also have to treat like I go just write like parentheses, like parentheses. So right, I couldn't do 7 plus 5 because maybe I'm like, oh, that's not a parenthesis, so I'll just do 7 plus 5 minus 7. No. This is called the absolute value. We'll go over this later.
Yeah, different topics.
Right? And again, this absolute value, we'll go over later. We'll have to. But
you
also,
understand
it's something
that, yeah.
in middle school that you first... Right now, we're doing pre-algebra, algebra 1. So part of this is, hopefully, you guys have some, right? Have some interaction with some of this stuff already, okay? But this just treat this as a parentheses. This right here, 5 minus 7 would be negative 2. Absolute value just means how far from 0. Oh, negative 2 is 2 from 0.
And then absolute value always positive.
Yes, absolute value is always positive. But again, this might confuse people. You see it on a Regents exam. No. Just treat these, right, lines, right, absolute value lines, like a parentheses. The bracket, right, like a parentheses. So, to reiterate, right, another Regents example I have, right, it came from a Regents exam. It asks that you simplify. And that's also terminology that maybe might confuse students. What do they mean by simplify? What do they want me to do? Right? Simplify, right? Typically they mean combine like terms. Right now, everything is a number.
There's no like term there.
Right?
So
Each of these is a number on its own that you can combine. Right? Like say if there was an x in there, or sorry, x squared, or some letter, then you couldn't combine this 15 with that letter. That's why it's important. I want people to understand when they say simplify, they mean, yeah, put the things together, but don't just put everything together. You have to put the things that are like terms. If there's a variable, there's an a, put it with another a. Right? If there's a b, put it with another b. But these are all numbers that can all be joined together. If they say simplify, find a way that you can put them together. What is that way that Mr. Paulin went over? Oh, the way to put this together is what? Order of operations. So we start with the parentheses. And you might think, oh, I'll just do the 2 plus 6. It is in the brackets, and a bracket is like a parentheses. No, no, no. You have to start to the innermost parentheses. So first I have to start here. Is there anything inside here that I need to do? No. So then now I open up from that inner parentheses. I go to the next parentheses like thing, the brackets. I go, oh, inside here, what do I have? I have 2 plus 6 times negative 3. What did Mr. Paul say we had to do? Do we do the plus first? Oh, no, no, PEMDAS. We do the multiplication first. And there's no division, right? It's just addition and multiplication. We're going to do the multiplication first. 2. If you want, you can leave the plus negative 18. Right? And again, we could use a distributive property and put the negative 3. I wouldn't do that. All of these are numbers. We could just use Euler operations to simplify it. 2 plus negative 18, negative 36. Right? If I want, maybe that might confuse you, so I'll just leave the brackets, right? We already, right? We finished, we combined everything inside the bracket, and we got negative 36. Okay? We're done with what's inside here. So let's move out. What do we do first? The minus, or if it's right next to it, it's multiplication, right?
So which way? Is 2 plus or 2 multiply?
Oh, he's right.
It's not multiply.
He got me.
It does not multiply.
I made a mistake.
It's plus.
He's very right. 2 plus negative 18.
Yes.
16.
That's 16, yeah.
Very good catch.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hopefully you guys saw that too. So now I have to do negative 3 times negative 16. Some people would do 3 times negative 16. That's fine too. I'll do that. Minus, what's 3 times negative 16? Well, 3 times positive 3 times would be negative, what is that? 8, 48, right? 3 16 is 18. And what happens when you minus a negative? And then this is what Mr. Paul was talking about, sign numbers. But sign numbers, right, Mr. Paul?
Yeah,
that's something
numbers.
you
Yeah,
learn elementary, right?
Yeah, elementary, yeah. Because I used to teach from 6, 7, and 8 graders, yeah.
That's why. So,
Yeah,
I know this might look complicated. That means that you just need to really go back to your basic numbers and practice with that. Because at this level of math, algebra and pre-algebra, they assume that you understand.
Yeah, they understand, yeah.
That you
Integers,
understand
yeah.
this. Okay? Yeah, exactly. We first talked about integers.
Yeah.
So then you need to understand, like, oh, and when I'm minus a negative, it becomes a plus. And so the answer is 63. Okay?
That's right. And this is a real
Regents
questions
problem.
in the region.
Yeah. But to me, what I wanted to go over is, I just wanted an example to reiterate what Mr. Paulin did, but I wanted to give you hard, like, Regents questions that really isn't about doing the math like this. Nowadays, from the most recent exams, they give you questions that make you, like, think. They don't, the multiple choice, because it's a time test. They just want to get you go through the problems. This might take a while. And so this is from a very old Regents, but a more modern Regents questions about order of operations, I'm going to put on the board.
Okay. And sometimes they even put like some vocabulary sentences
exactly.
that confuses you.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to briefly go over simplify, because like sometimes, like here, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
The question says, what is first step in simplifying the expression?
So they don't ask you to solve it. They ask you to tell them which is the first step that you have to take.
And then look what they do. They give you something that looks just like this. And it says, right, we have 2 choices. Four choices.
Okay.
And this to me is a very good problem because it literally is, it doesn't want you to do the calculations.
Yeah, they don't ask you to solve it. They want to know what will be your first step. Seeing this, a bunch of number and a parenthesis and then plus an exponent.
And they also, right, it's also, do you understand what simplifying means? What do they want you, what do they mean by, and then what is an expression? What does that even mean? Right? And again, an expression is just, right, you put a bunch of numbers and variables together. An equation would be if there's an equal sign. There's no equal sign, so it's an
It is
expression.
not an equation, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not an equation, it's an expression. And imagine PEMDAS. What does it say? Parentheses, exponent, multiplication, division, addition, then subtraction. Most people might say, oh, let's do the square 5. What do they mean by even square? The terminology, what does even square means? And hopefully that's testing that you understand that this exponent is another way to say that exponent is squaring. So it's already testing if you understand the terminology of squaring is an exponent. And then they put that answer in there because they know that a few students will be like, oh, well, exponent is like the very beginning. That's the first thing you would do. So the answer must be square 5.
Yeah.
The answer must, right? Because you're supposed to do exponents before you do multiplication or addition. All of these say addition, subtraction, multiplication. But like we just went over, is the exponent inside the parentheses? No.
Outside.
The exponent's outside. We have to do first everything inside the parentheses. So we already know it can't be square 5. The square, the exponent's outside.
And while you're inside the parentheses, you still have to follow the order of operation.
Yeah, and then while you're still inside here, you have to, so some kids might be like, oh, well, then obviously I'll do 2 minus 3.
No.
Or subtract 3 from 2, because that's the first thing. I thought we were supposed to do from first, right, from the left to the right. Aren't you supposed to do the first thing? No. PEMDAS says what? Yeah, you're supposed to do the left to right, but within the parentheses, the innermost parentheses, you always have to follow exponent, multiplication, division, then addition or subtraction. So would I add or subtract before I multiply inside? No.
So the right answer is 4.
It's 4.
So you multiply 3 times 4.
Right? You multiply, right? Multiply before
Addition
add
or subtraction.
and subtract, right? Yeah, both. You're always gonna multiply before that. So again, that's why me and Mr. Paulin, all right, Mr. Paulin and I are going over this because it's very, when you just see it and we explain it to you, we hope that after this you'll be like, oh, if I see this on a test, I'm not gonna fool for these answer choices they give you, right? Because they do this on purpose. They really want to test that you understand what these concepts are. And it's not that complicated, right? You just have to follow, right, the order of operations. And you have to understand what the words mean. And that's why this was very important for Paul and I to go over this and talking it in Creole. What does it mean by simplifying? What is an expression? When they say square, what are they where's this? There's no square there. Yeah, the 2 there, that's another way of saying to the second power. To the power of 2, square. Well, the exponent's outside. I thought we're supposed to do what's inside the parentheses first. So then that's how already you know it can't be square 5. I'll do one more. Another one that's very similar, Mr. Paul. What do you think of this problem?
That was
Right?
a nice one, yeah.
Nice problem. I'll do another
And then
one.
I know kids will be eager to solve it, but they don't ask you to solve.
Yeah, it doesn't ask
They
you to
ask
solve.
you to show which step you will be taking
And that's
first.
another point I'm glad that Mr. Paulin brought up. See, now, like modern day tests and assessments, they don't just want you to punch numbers and calculate things. They know you can do that. You can use a calculator and do that. They want to know that you mentally know like the rules, right? The rules of math, right? That you can logically follow a procedure. And that doesn't mean that you do the procedure. It means that you know the steps where anything you see, you know exactly what to do. And it just asks you, well, what's the first thing you would do? Right? That was a good problem. Another one that's very similar is this one. I like this one too. right? This is a legitimate regions problem, right? And it, all right. Good.
Uh-huh.
So, right, another one. Again, this is the gauge order of operations. If the expression 3 minus 4 to the second power plus 6 over 2 is evaluated, what would be done last? Subtracting, squaring, adding, dividing. And again, to what Mr. Paulin's point was at the previous problem, they don't want us to actually do it. You know, even if you could do it, say if a kid can do it, it's not going to help them answer this question. Maybe it could. If they do it, out. But it might be time consuming, right? It's a time test. Maybe they want you to, right? Sometimes they put in questions to take up your time. But what do we know about PEMDAS? We have to do the parentheses first. Is there any parentheses? No. And then after parentheses, it said what? Exponent, right? Well, will the exponent be done last? No. So that's what I said. Even before you start doing the math out, you should at least look at it and think about it. And that's what they want you to do. And then you'll see this faster. Well, if I know the exponent is not last, what's the exponent they have here? 2. And we said that this is the same thing as what? Squaring. You have to know, you have to understand to the second power. So then I already know that can't be the answer choice. That's not something I would do last. I have to do the exponent before I do addition and subtraction. And even with that being said, then we already know if I know the order of operations, PEMDAS, I know it can't be dividing. Because I know the last thing is always going to be addition or subtraction. And now this is the tricky thing, in that maybe a kid would need to do the math out. But if you understand that this is the exponent, and also you understand that this right here, division is happening, then we already know the square and the division would happen before addition and subtraction. Now between these two, which one would be the last thing to happen? Right? Because you go from left to right. Remember, we kept on reiterating left to right. So I wouldn't do the subtraction last. I had to do that first. 3 minus whatever, then plus whatever that was.
Yeah, very good.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Good job.
That's a good problem.
Now, yeah, a lot of people are going to have difficulties solving this here.
Yeah.
Because first of all, they're going to have tendency to solve this without reading the entire questions, which is what will be done last. And this is the key. Qui ça qu'a fait en dernier net? C'est pour cette raison, guys, là, nous avons fait mathématiques, c'est toujours important pour nous les questions. Ou bien doit aller ou solver ou jouer un answer, but c'est pas un answer que vous avez besoin, pas besoin de réponse. Vous avez besoin qu'on connaisse dans toute order of operation qui est cap en dernier net.
And another thing too, you see the 6 over 2? They might even pick dividing because that's the last thing at the end.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
they
think about
come
that.
ça, mais pas
Yeah,
ça
I
que
didn't even
c'est
think
fait.
about that.
That means for solving, and then by solving it, which one standing, that will be the last one. And John Kemdeju là gagne addition avant, but I said earlier, c'est qui est-ce qui vient from left to right. Si que c'est soustraction qu'avant, ou pas qu'à faire soustraction avant, on va qu'à faire addition avant soustraction parce que that's from left to right. So c'est la raison ça, guys, pour nous les questions yo, et puis nous répondre bagay yo. So comme moi dis nous, multi problème ça yo n'a fait souvent, and then guys, vous connaissez. En termes de technologie, moi j'étais live dans TikTok, et puis le fait que moi j'étais devant caméra, m'pas derrière caméra, so m'pas ouais que nous demandé moi pour m'être capable vérifier que gon monde qui la cap garder li. So tout bagay ça yo connaît, c'est première fois que m'a fait live dans TikTok dans sens ça, ouais que m'pas devant caméra, So, therefore, qu'on y a qui ça pour me faire, les messieurs pour ça parler, so, faut mal camper des caméras pour me vérifier pour les TikTok à demander. Parce qu'on n'aime pas demander nous pour nous share, pas demander nous pour nous like, so, à cause, depuis qu'on n'a pas de mouvement, then you have bring down the live, vous comprenez? So, je suis obligé de retourner live encore. Mais nous pas besoin de peur, moi, recorder normalement, là, on l'autre caméra pour m'aller mettre les dans YouTube, dans ça, et puis après ça, je prends phase ça, et puis je vois le back dans TikTok, et que je regarde les, et que je fais les par séquence. Et puis, je vais mettre quelques problèmes que M. Prosper bon moi. Those are the problems. Right, Mr. Prosper?
Yep.
Nous pouvons aller mettre 2-3 PDF file online.
That's the
Yes.
third one. Yeah.
Yeah, 2-3 PDF file online. OK? So, pour nous capables de faire ça, nous pouvons faire. So, comme M. Prosper fait ça avec nous, même m'a fait one more problème. Et puis, après ça, pour nous capables de quitter, ça, nous pouvons faire. This is un autre problème que vous mettez dans widget là. The third one.
Well, that's the one I just did. You want a different one?
OK. OK, ça, you do the expression. You do expression, ça, c'est 15 minus 3 bracket 2 plus 6 minus 3.
But remember, I did that one at the beginning.
Oh, you did that already? Okay.
You want to do one with the absolute value or?
Okay. This one, the expression, you mark it comme ça, the expression negative, absolute value, negative 7 is equivalent to. Et puis, on connaît là, on fait examen là, widget, il y a toujours bon 4 réponses. C'est réponse 1 c'est 1, 2A c'est 0, 3 c'est 7, et 4 là c'est 7. Negative 7. So c'est ça que bah nous comme answer. Right?
Yeah, the answer's in the back of that.
Yeah. So c'est ça que bah comme answers. That's what I have here. Which one I did? Okay. That's the one that they gave us for answers, guys. Now, the way I'm going to speak nous, ça really absolute value. Mr. Prosper, you went over that, right?
Yeah, briefly.
Yeah. Ça really absolute value. Depuis nous avons deux petits barres comme ça, guys, n'importe nombre qui l'a mis temps, c'est absolute value. And absolute value, guys, nous pas besoin de tête nos problèmes. Depuis nous avons deux petits barres là, pour un c'est pour le positif regardless. Absolute value of positive 3, c'est 3. And absolute value of negative 5, c'est 5 que lié. Pas quitter les confuse nous. Depuis nous avons deux petits barres là, quel que soit le nombre qui l'a mis temps, c'est positif la pied. Si pas gagné négatif in front of it, c'est positif. Si gagne négatif, c'est positif. So, in this sense, le fait que nous parlons de peine d'acier, ou pas qu'à aller pour aller faire multiplication là, parce que les dieux, mais c'est pour faire dire que absolute value, bracket ça, c'est même gens comme si c'était parenthèse qu'elle est. So, therefore, c'est pour nous sauver avant. So, le problème ça là, nous sauve absolute value à first, qui 7, and then the right answer will be negative 7. And that's it. There's nothing more to do. C'est comme ça qu'il est.
And some kids might think, oh, you have to distribute the
No, you don't have to
negative.
distribute because you have to solve
You
the
have to
bracket
do-
first.
Yeah. Right.
Ça qui est dans le bracket là, c'est pour nous
Exactly.
faire avant. C'est peut-être raison ça que nous fait absolute value qui est bon moins 7, and then comme vin gen bracket là devant lui, so bracket là qu'on y a vin rete, qui fait que li vin negative 7. So guys, guess what? Pas grand pile problème qui fait là, c'est juste ou doit connaître qui gens que pour sauver ça yo. So c'était absolute value, parce que dans order of operations, and then avec algebraic properties. So c'était deux topics ça yo que moi avec M. Prosper nous te go over et que nous abordons trois petits exemples. And then si quand que nous avons chance nous aller online, nous taper give bon moi quelques problèmes sur property, algebraic properties, et puis quelques problèmes sur order of operation, guys, and then pratiquer yo. Comme moi, dis nous, moi, ba nous enough, et moi, je suppose faire nous ba nous enough, et que moi, le mettre dans YouTube channel là, je vais mettre un link pour PDF là que nous capables download et puis pour nous pratiquer. On comprend, guys? So c'était comme ça. Mr. Prosper, you have anything else to say?
No. I mean, hopefully everyone, you know, was able to get a lot from what we just went over. Again, I felt like a lot of the problems we went over just showed you the importance of understanding our order of operations as well as, right, the algebraic properties.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's it. So when we come, oh, by the way, guys, we are going to be in vacation, right?
Oh, yeah.
So definitely, jeudi à ces derniers jours, travail nous, nous là pour tourner 8 juillet, 8, July 8.
Yeah.
And then July 8, we will be back for our live sessions. And then après, ratio dans juillet. Là, on a fait 3 jours dans juillet par semaine. Hopefully 3 days per week à partir de 8 juillet. Amen. Beginning of July 8. Because we are going to be on vacation. A short vacation, right?
Yeah. Like 10 days?
Yeah, 10 days vacation, guys.
But what
are
we going to do next time?
We're going to do integers, which is...
we're going
to do, yeah. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are going to do sign numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, sign numbers. I say sign numbers are pile. Sign numbers of addition, sign numbers of subtraction, sign numbers of multiplication, of division. And then after that, nous allons tomber dans sign numbers of fractions. Et que nous allons entrer dans fractions avec nous. Guys, prenez patience avec nous, because the beginning, it is always tedious, you know?
Yeah.
So, moi, j'ai insisté pour nous commencer from the beginning, me and Mr. Prosper, parce que nous pas rentrer d'emblée into the algebra too.
Yeah.
Without you guys understand what's going on with the beginning. Because one of the biggest mistakes that I see when teaching, we assume that kids understood things.
Yeah.
And then in fact, it is not the case. Et pour cette raison, ça m'a enseigné toujours commencer from the beginning. Okay?
But we even talked about it with the examples we use. We realized that we might need to cover sign numbers, like you said.
That's right.
Working with integers and negatives.
That's right.
And like make sure that's down pat. So then simple mistakes aren't made where you like get this problem wrong because you didn't understand.
Yeah.
You know?
What is absolute value or exponent.
Or what's
like
a negative
that.
or negative.
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Those are very important, and sometimes the biggest mistake kids do make when they take a test, it is with sign numbers.
Correct.
They don't know, because they don't know a negative times a negative is a positive, or a negative times a positive, it is a negative.
Yeah.
You know, so, bagage ça ou de connaître pas que même gens qu'on connaît multiplication 5 multiplié par 5 c'est 25. So, faut que ou keep repeating tout bagage ça yo, the properties of integers. All right, guys. So, c'est toujours un plaisir.
And another thing, hopefully they realize, yes, math is a lot of numbers, but hopefully from this video you realize language is
yes.
Hey, right?
Yeah, language, yeah.
You couldn't understand anything any of the regions problems if you didn't understand the
That's
language.
Right.
So maybe we can make sure that we
That's
reiterate.
Right.
If you're in school, listen to your teachers. Like, pay attention to them while they're talking to you and trying to explain these things.
Yes. Language, very important. Vocabulary, words, very important, guys. So, always a pleasure, guys. Normally, c'est Franz Paulin, Mr. Prosper, Mr. Paulin, nap team up, guys. Et puis, pour nous aller. Ma intention, c'est pour me faire cours ça yo, as often, pour jusqu'à ce niveau dans calculus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do pre-algebra. Now, this is pre-algebra. Then, after that, we do algebra, and then algebra 1, and then probably algebra 2, and then calculus. All right, guys? So, fully get our fair.
Or geometry.
Or geometry too. Geometry. So, après ça, nous allons aller dans what? Dans economics?
Yeah.
So, dans economics, c'est bon en pile. Oui, quand on est comme sur finance. OK, guys, c'est un plaisir. Et que nous ne pouvons pas faire plus qu'une heure et demie là.
Thank you so much for your
Love
time.
you very much,
Thank
guys.
you.
So, see you next time. OK, bye. OK. Stop.
We were on for a long time, no?
Yeah. We are for a long time here. That's it. We're done.